prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story explains who, what, when, where, why, and how. Lead Story with George Davis, weekdays at 6:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
On Lead Story this evening, you can understand if I'm a bit understated in my opening, because today we're dealing with an issue like we've never dealt with before here. We're going to talk about suicide, the issues, the mental issues that weigh so heavily on individuals that they cut their lives short. They end their lives early. And we're going to talk to the experts about the scale of the problem in Jamaica and what organizations are doing to try to give people an alternative, to try to get them to choose life. That's the issue on Lead Story on this Thursday. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. So as I told you at the start, suicide is the issue we'll explore on this program today. It is the silent killer, really. Many people taking their own lives because of the hugely depressive state they find themselves in, whether it's because of the state of the family finances, their own personal situation, problems with relating to people on an emotional level, problems in their relationships, or even problems at work, the inter-office relationships, and the way they feel as if they're alone, that they're constantly being put upon by those around them, or even ignored. They feel as if they're invisible, notwithstanding the work that they believe they are doing that demands that they be treated with respect. These are just some of the things that lead people to take their own life. There was a case only this week in the United States where the US pop star Bon Jovi was recording a video, shooting a video, and he saw a woman on a bridge, on the wrong side of the bridge, as the experts in the field would say, about to jump into the water several feet below. And the reports are there was a video that was shot. One of his assistants and Bon Jovi himself went to the woman, and very calmly they engaged her in conversation. And then moments later, the pop star had his arms around the woman, as if, if you were driving past and saw them, you'd have thought that they were having a casual conversation. And it was that intervention which prevented another addition to the suicide statistics in the United States. It is a real problem. Some families have lost loved ones to suicide, and they are still here this day wishing that they could have made an intervention, that they had the skills to intervene, or that they knew somewhere they could take that loved one to get the requisite help. We have a package to set the tone for the discussion. Let's go to it now.
Have you ever heard the word suicide? Do you know what suicide is?
Suicide is when a person just gives up on life and says, I just can't bother anymore, so I'm just gonna kill myself.
Okay. Where did you hear that from?
When you watch too many documentaries because you're bored.
Okay.
And they all come to the end, which is good.
Have you ever had that thought?
Actually, yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
A shocking response to Tanya Simpson Walcott from her 11-year-old daughter, and a twist to our story on suicide prevention. Suicide is one of those hard-to-discuss topics, even though every year internationally on September 10, there are deliberate attempts to reduce stigma and increase awareness. It's sliced like a knife, her child recounting the summer days left in the company of an older sibling, while mom and dad seemed to be always working.
Sometimes she would fall asleep and I would get bored. And then those thoughts just came to me, ended up picking up a knife. But I couldn't do it because life is just the best thing that would ever happen to you. So just don't end it.
Okay.
Well, this is not something we expected to hear.
Not at all. Not at all.
Do you want to tell her now?
Just as how you would have had that thought, and it is because you felt bored. And of course, what you saw on television, did you know that I've actually tried to commit suicide?
In addition to overhearing phone conversations, Mrs. Simpson Walcott, who is now a Christian and a counselor in training, uses her stories to help others, having moved from what she deemed a position of shame and being constantly flogged by her mother, a single parent.
There were some things that my mom didn't understand. I mean, God bless her soul, she tried to do her best, but I believe that there was not enough love. I felt as if I was neglected, and it's not a neglect that she didn't want to do anything for me, but that thing where you'd want a mother to hug you, to talk with, you didn't get that from her. And as a result of that, I kept having these thoughts. I also was very fearful of her because everything she beat for. It was so strange. And because of the fear drove the thoughts. Sometimes I wish that I could just die and just didn't wake up, just go to bed and just didn't wake up.
And then one day you actually tried.
She survived a major overdose of pills and alcohol, brought back at hospital after being bullied in school, and later in the face of abuse as a young adult, the thoughts came right back.
There are always underlying issues to a person's situation. And if it is that we don't find the root cause of the problem, this is where you find persons being fearful, and they will also have these suicidal ideations or tendencies. And if persons don't get support, they will...
Yeah, see, put in stark terms, the issues that motivate people to end their own lives. We'll pick up the conversation here on Lead Story after this break.
Look who we have in the cut.
No, today episode I got nice. Legends, Senator,
My long-time brethren,
the great, all-star,
the king,
and the man himself.
Salute.
You know, as man, we're not to go as specialists.
And that's the pinnacle of the problem.
We want some new era.
Do what you love and you never work a day in your life. You lie.
You work till a week.
It was pandemonium.
Country people can relate to me, I talk about. What you think about me no matter, you know. What matter to me is what me think about myself.
Man United, I don't care what man want to say.
You know, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, man.
You finished?
Yes, we finished.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow.
You know my heart goes crazy when you take the lips to time. Let's explore our love. We'll leave the world behind. Can you feel this
It's a schoolboy football, September 7 to December 14 on CVM TV.
Look who we have in the cut.
No, today episode I got nice. Legends, Senator,
My long-time brethren,
the great, all-star,
the king,
and the man himself.
Salute.
You know, as man, we're not to go as specialists.
And that's the pinnacle of the problem.
We want some new era.
Do what you love and you never work a day in your life. You lie.
You work till a week.
It was pandemonium.
Country people can relate to me I talk about. What you think about me no matter, you know. What matter to me is what me think about myself.
Man United, I don't care what man want to say.
You know, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, man. You finished?
Yes, we finished.
Now I'm where I wanna be.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow.
Hi, I'm Celine Gordon, host of Holy Road.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy John Mark Wigan, host on the show Holy Road. Listen, people need to know what's happening in the churches and in ministry in all of Jamaica. It's an absolute blessing. We're really excited to share this.
Tune in to CVM, see it happen.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We have a sensitive topic on the agenda this evening. Suicide is what we're talking about. Dr. Donovan Thomas, President and founder of Choose Life International, is with me. And we are set to be joined by someone who was on the brink not so long ago. Dr. Thomas, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time. September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day, as declared by International Association of Suicide Prevention, supported by the World Health Organization. And we are saying, let's change the narrative, start the conversation as we focus not only on September 10th as a day, but special emphasis during the month of September.
In this increasingly open world, Dr. Thomas, where we overshare to ridiculous proportions, where everybody can have a friend, where everybody can find something to lose themselves in, why are we still seeing such high rates of suicide across the world when back in the day, in a period gone by, they said to us that people did not have access to friends, did not have portals through which they could channel certain emotions. That was perhaps why they were taking their own lives. Now the situation has changed, but people are still choosing to end it early. Can you explain that for us?
You know, there are many people who are indulged in activities that could expose them to high risk of suicide. There are still people who are being bullied. There are still people who are exposed to substance abuse and still people who experience death and loss of loved ones, close friends, and they're not able to deal with those situations. There are still people who are sexually abused, who experience mental health challenges. There are still people experiencing broken relationships who really feel so overwhelmed by life circumstances, and many people internalize it. They withdraw. They sometimes don't feel that the place is safe. And while we are in contact with many people, sometimes the relationships are surface. And we want to stress the importance of digging deep, being willing to risk making those connect with people who are hurting. And all of us have a part to play in being kind and considerate, being helpful, being supportive, as we seek to be able to empower those who are so challenged by life circumstances that they feel that they want to take their own lives. What I've just shared with you are some of those risk factors right now.
What's the prevalence of suicide in Jamaica at this time, and what's the demographic distribution of the intention to do the deed and actually doing the deed?
Well, you know, suicide rate is considered out of per 100,000.
Yes.
And Jamaica at this point in time, maybe 2 per 100,000. A relatively low rate compared to different parts of the world. But we find that that there are many more people who are attempting. And while I do not have the figures right here at hand, there are multiples more of people who have attempted. And in fact, one of the things, and then I should also say there are many others who have thought about it, but have not gone on to hurt themselves yet. And that's the group that we are largely concerned about.
Yes.
We want to be able to intercept people before they pull that trigger, before they make that final jump. As way back as in the late 90s, early 2000 when I did my doctorate.
Hold the point there, Dr. Thomas. Just hold the point right there. I want you to have a clear train of thought. So let's take the break and come right back.
Fresh off their appearance in last year's final, Glenmuir High are in the hunt for glory. They face last year's Da Costa Cup semi-finalists, Garvey Maceo, in this epic Zone I showdown. Glenmuir High versus Garvey Maceo High. See it happen live Saturday 3:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
Come rise with Sunrise. DJ Phoenix rises on the ones and twos for a Yanis blast-off. Plus, it's Sunrise on stilts. Whoa, Yachty got talent blazes. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. Having a conversation with Dr. Donovan Thomas, talking about the issue of suicide. Going to welcome a second guest to the discussion, Candace Vernon Hines. She is Candace Vernon Hines. She's a suicide prevention advocate and a survivor who will share a bit of her story here. Candace, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
All right. Just before I introduce you, Dr. Thomas, before the break, you were making a point about your experience following on from a question I asked you about the suicide prevalence rate here in Jamaica.
Yeah, and I'm saying that there is a high vulnerability to suicide. So if we were to look at the Jamaican population as even what came forth in my studies and supported by subsequent research, about 3% of the Jamaican teens may be considered at high risk to suicide. But there may be another 40% that show some amount of risk to suicide. And given failing exam, broken love affair, conflict at home, they could easily decide that they can't bother.
Yeah.
So probably it's high. Well, it's higher than many of us want to even imagine.
Yes.
And there are so many people who are thinking about it. And our passion in Choose Life International is to help people to change their minds about taking their own lives. And I'm happy that Candace has consented.
Yes. And let me bring her in the discussion now, Dr. Thomas, because Candace, I'm keen to know what were the feelings that engulfed you as you ultimately journeyed on that path of no return.
All right, so I've contemplated suicide before when I was in my teenage growing up in an abusive home, of course, with a mom who is a single parent. Many times I would have been abused, and I would have heard how much I am not wanted, I'm not loved, and I would heard my mom would say things like, "I wish you dead," and "I wish if I could just, I'm sorry you were born." Those things broke me, and I said to myself years ago that, if my mother who gave birth to me don't want me, then no one will ever want me or accepted me. And so living with my mom, I attempted suicide 5 times. This did not change. I thought it would have when I started having my children and have a family. I thought that the feeling would have just disappeared and everything would work well. It did not change. And what I found out is that suicide is not a thing that persons are they are comfortable talking about, because the first thing persons are going to tell you, oh, you're not going to see God.
Yes.
Oh, you're not going to see him. If you should die, you're going to hell, and all of those things. And so I came to a point in my life where I said, you know what? If this is living, then I don't want to be here.
Yes.
I don't want to be a part of this, because this already feels like hell and what I've been through. So my latest attempt, however, was October 4th, 2022. That day I was finished. Everything was finished. I went to one of the roughest period in my life, through rejection, and I reached to a point where I was not returning. I did not want to come back. I could not find a purpose to live. I could not find a reason to want to be here. Even my students at school, when someone said to me, if you should get up tomorrow and your students ask about you, what would we tell them? I said, tell them anything. It was though I care zero. I want nothing to do. No one saw me. No one saw that I was hurting, because I laugh a lot and I always wear a pleasant smile. So that was my latest attempt until one day I posted my casket on my status. I posted a red casket on my status, and I planned to take my life the 14th of November, which is my birthday. I said I want to do it on my time. I want to do it the day I was born. So that day will be etched in history. I planned it well. And so I counted down the 14 and I said my goodbyes. And I made my peace with everyone. And I've forgiven everyone. I don't want to be no more seen as a part of the problem, because I thought I was one of the biggest problem in everybody's life, until my regional director called me and said to me, what is going on? What is that on your status? And I said, it's just thinking about the afterlife and trying to make sense of it all. Didn't want her to intervene. I didn't want help. I didn't know where to turn for help, to be honest, because I've not gotten help before, so I don't even know what to trust. I don't know what is there. Persons are going to tell you, oh, just live. Somebody wants you here, and I can't find that. And so she said to me, can I connect you with my doctor? I said, I'm really not interested in talking to anyone. However, I don't want to be rude, and I'll be as pleasant as ever. So when I was connected to Dr. Thomas, I didn't call him. He called me. He called me, and trust me, I picked up the call, and I just went right into it. And I said, Dr. Thomas, I am done. I'm through.
And I'm transfixed here, Candacia, because I want to hear from you in the short time we have left. What is it that he said to you that pulled you back?
He said to me, I was finishing my master's at the time. So I was at university, and you were working on my master's. And he said to me, Candacia, one morning when I called him, and it was the cup. That was the cup. I said, Candacia, I want you to cross over. I want to have an interview with you. You have something that nobody can take from you. It is inside you. It is in your head. It's your education. Candacia, let them have whatever they want. Give whatever is going. Let it fall. Just let it fall. God will allow it to fall into place. That morning, I said, yes, sir. And he said to me, Candacia, when you cross over, meaning when I'm finished with my studies, I was doing educational psychology. So when I'm finished with my studies, I am waiting for that call. And then I called him and I said, Doc, I crossed over. I'm still here as an educational psychologist.
Yes, yes. Dr. Thomas, I wish we had another hour. But for people like Candacia, for people harboring these thoughts, or people feeling as if the world is better off without them, clearly the first thing who should they talk to first? Who should they turn to for help, especially when they feel as if there's nobody in the world who wants to help them with their problem, help them to carry their burden?
Well, there are just so many people. who care about people like Candacia. First of all, as you listen to her narrative, her supervisor at work showed that she cared by saying, hey, what's going on with you? It wasn't a non-threatening, it wasn't an attack on her, but you can share with your supervisor. I want to say, share your feelings with someone responsible, wherever that person may be. It may be a co-worker, it may be a pastor, it may be a teacher, it may be a friend, but don't be afraid to call for help. And I want to just remind you that the Ministry of Health operates a 24-hour helpline, 888-639-5433. So talk to somebody. I also want to say to those of you that may be having thoughts about hurting yourself, hand over any drugs or weapon that you have. Disclose your plans to a trusted friend. Resist any temptation to be alone. Insist that you will not obey that voice. Remember, there's always a way of escape. And we want to just remind you all that in the midst of what's going on, suicide causes more problems, not solutions. Many times I have come to the place where I realize that even people who attempt suicide have mixed feelings about wanting to die.
Yes.
What they really want to do is to get help. I've had so many people who we have been able to just help to change the narrative.
Yes.
To starting the conversation. And we've been able to help them to be able to solve the problem rather than see themselves as a problem.
Hearing on that, I have to give the last word to Candacia, Dr. Thomas, because Candacia, for those who struggled like you did as a child, as a young adult, and as an established woman, you said you were there as recently as 2 years ago, but you're still here and you're going strong. What advice can you give them from a person who's walked the road almost to the brink? Quickly.
Find someone you can trust. And listen, and that's all. That's my biggest advice. Find someone you can trust. Not everybody is going to judge you. Not everyone is your judge. And so I know you said quickly, but also I've come across students who I was to help, who are at the brink of giving up, and they too have gotten the help. So find someone you can trust. Call them, text them.
And last question for you, Candacia. Do you feel as if you've turned a corner?
I have replaced self-hate with self-love. And I have replaced so much. I have turned right around because I now know that what I've been through, it was not for me. It was to help somebody else. And I would not have understood what it feels like to reach to that brink of wanting to die so badly unless I have experienced it. And I have experienced it, and I know right now I use my social media platform